Hi, this is Karen from Soterion, and you're listening to the SAP Security and GRC Podcast with host Dudley Cartwright, helping you on your journey to effective access risk management in SAP. Soterion's GRC Trends Report documents 4 pivotal insights and predictions that we believe will shape the future of GRC. You're welcome to download a copy from our website, soterion.com. Our podcast will include a 4-part series to cover each prediction in more detail. In this episode, we will discuss one of these predictions. As cloud adoption increases, clarity on ownership and risk exposure becomes blurred. We'll be joined by industry experts Waseem Ajrab from NoMonkey and Emile Steyn from Soterion. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast. We're going to be covering the prediction 3 from our latest insight and prediction report, and that's around the topic of, as cloud adoption increases, that is going to introduce, just an additional level of complexity and challenges for many organizations. So we've split this sort of section into 3 subsections. The first being that as organizations start introducing more SAP cloud solutions or third-party cloud solutions, so whether that's them moving away from SAP HCM, introducing success factors, or implementing Ariba, or making use of those third-party products like Coupa, Salesforce, etc. All of those solutions have different security concepts. The way in which you control them, the access and the permissions are dealt with very differently. So this potentially just adds a huge amount of additional administration burden on the security team, making their lives a little bit more difficult to ensure adequate level of control. The second area that we'll cover is just a lot of the access control solutions lack the sort of capability to analyze a lot of the cloud solutions. So it potentially just leaves a lot of organizations with not having the necessary visibility as to what their true risk exposure is due to, those access control with GRC solutions not being able to sort of adequately analyze some of the cloud solutions. And then the third category or area that we're going to cover is just with SAP's drive or move or push to get customers to move on to the SAP RISE program. Are there any sort of ownership challenges associated with that between what are the various service providers responsible for, what is SAP responsible for, and what is the customer responsible for? And are there any sort of security areas that there may just be sort of areas not really understanding who is the correct owner and responsible for certain tasks? So I'm joined today by Waseem Ajrab, from NoMonkey. Waseem, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. It's your first appearance, and we look forward to having you here today. And also joined by Emile Steyn from Soterion. So you guys all know Emile, but Waseem, if you don't mind just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you and NoMonkey do.
Definitely. Thank you for having me, first of all. To start with, my background within security is coming from cybersecurity. So in NoMonkey, we are based on 2 entities. One is the advisory, one is the academy part. I lead the advisory area where I bring those values of cybersecurity into the area of SAP security, whether it is through different assessments, whether it is supply chain security, you have security operations, even around governance and compliance in those specific areas. So we try to start with how people are handling security in organizations. So we try to remove these silos, which are the monkeys in NoMonkey, remove these silos between the security operation or security department, the SAP operations, the audit departments, whether they're internal or external. And then you have that fourth monkey, which is right here, there are more of problems that happen on the C-levels area, whether it's a CISO, CIO, to try to resolve those silos to understanding SAP security. And then we have the academy part of NoMonkey, where we also provide different courses. We provide different paths for security professionals and SAP security professionals to understand different areas of SAP security operations or understand areas within the cybersecurity realm, concentrating on those 4 or 5 NIST cybersecurity framework. and putting them in line with SAP operation there. So that's a bit about NoMonkey, about myself, and what I do with NoMonkey.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Listen, now obviously we're very supportive of those activities that NoMonkey do from a perspective of, just the lack of education is such a challenge for many organizations. And if you don't have necessary sort of exec level, C-level understanding what's involved, you don't get the buy-in you should. And if you don't get the buy-in at this sort of business senior level, a lot of those security programs just don't get the attention, they should. So yeah, it's an invaluable service that you guys are performing at NoMonkey. Waseem, we'll just jump straight into this and pose the first question to you. So for all of those companies that have embraced or a lot of the cloud solutions, what are some of the main challenges that you are seeing at those organizations with those companies ensuring that they've got adequate control and that the security framework is performing the control that it should be? And then maybe just extend on that, can you also just elaborate a little bit on the types of services that you are assisting those clients with in those scenarios?
All right. So to start with, it starts with, we have that and we've seen it a lot with organizations. It starts with people and their roles or responsibilities. So governance around adopting any cloud solution and creating that hybrid or you have that on-premise areas, and responsibility is quite not there when it comes to that. If you adopt a hybrid solution, you still need to understand what your roles and responsibilities, who is the owner of that product, what kind of risk has that on the entire organization. So this entire area of responsibility or governance is not existent to some organizations. They implement a solution based on an operational need, which is good, which is a benefit for the organization, but it needs to involve the right people within the organization. So whether it is a information security officer, but they need to also be aligned with SAP. So SAP is a monster, I would say. They have their own world, Japanese world, and they still need to integrate those different areas within the organizations that sometimes is not understandable. So what we see a lot is defining governance. So we have different services, definitely to guide them to break those different silos. So we do like the core business application workshop where we put different stakeholders within the organizations and try to define with them through a tabletop exercise or the concepts of threat modeling to identify where their risks, where their gaps are, where they have opportunities with their internal organizations to improve on these challenges, or not improve, but to also resolve these challenges. One other part is definitely when it comes to compliance. We see now that with the new introduction that will happen with NIS2, if you've heard of it, or any other compliance, regulatory compliance, there they start to let's say, lack the understanding of where should we concentrate on, even when it comes to audit. So these different departments are quite siloed, and they do not have the resources to understand, okay, what kind of compliance or standards do I need to look out for in terms of the hybrid solution or in terms of different deployment models that happen within the SAP environment.
Yeah, I think, Emile, we've seen that quite a bit outside, where just that lack of ownership becomes such a challenge. Companies implement whatever the solution is, even in our space, we see that with implementing, the access control solution that's implemented by IT, but then there's no sort of ownership that's passed on to the relevant business users. And then those solutions just, either become underutilized or just the necessary level of control is not there. So yeah, I can see obviously that educating the users on identifying who the rightful owners are, and then also what are the areas of concern? What should they be looking out for? Educating them on where the gaps are, so they know what to go look out for and what their function is with that. So yeah, and I guess as these cloud solutions come on board within an organization, it's important for the company to try and align their sort of security protocols from the SAP environment, make sure that they are as strict monitoring the cloud solutions. There's no point in having this wonderful control within the core SAP ABAP environment, but then these weaknesses in a lot of the cloud solutions. And there's a lot of, sort of very sensitive information in a lot of those cloud solutions. A lot of the HR information is sitting there, et cetera. So it should be controlled at an equal capability or a level that's on par with how the level of control is within the S4 or the ECC ABAP stack.
Dudley, I think you brought up a good point there. With the integration between any cloud application and whatever core application you use, like SAP, there's a lot of moving parts here. So as soon as you integrate with a different solution, there's data moving from one place to another, and potentially from there also to different areas. So if we bring it more back to our world, if we think about SAP SuccessFactors as a cloud application being implemented there, and all the sensitive data that's being moved there, and just how much complexity that has brought. It's this public application that's available in the cloud, can be accessed through APIs. So there's another layer of security there with public APIs that can be called, but also still moving parts back into ABAP, and which creates not only individual risk, but also that cross-system risk that we often speak about is, from an access perspective at least, there's people that can do function one in the cloud application and function two in your base application. So with all that moving parts, there's a lot more to consider. And unfortunately, with that new technology, people don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And hopefully that's where No Monkey can help us bridge that gap.
Yeah, it is definitely a challenge when we speak to, especially, let's say, stakeholders or business owners that are responsible for a part of that area or department or whatever business process. It's hard to deliver the message. If you cannot see that security is a problem, then there's no problem. And that's our message to deliver when you can do it. So we also try to do a lot of quantitative risk analysis when it comes to that. You create scenarios that might affect a certain environment, whether it is in the cloud, on premise. With those solutions, try to put an estimated value of how much an organization might lose or that business process might lose for somebody to hear you. So you need those C-levels to actually be on board for everybody in the company to say, okay, then we have a big problem. We need to start to tackle it. We need to address it. We need to put that ownership properly through different areas of the product or whatever we are bringing forward.
This is a good segue then into the next section, because that area sort of number two that I wanted to speak about was just a lot of the access control solutions sort of inability to analyze the cloud solutions. So that one puts companies at risk in that they don't have necessary visibility then of what the risk exposure is of those solutions. But I think equally important in that area is the audit firm's inability in some cases to analyze some of those cloud solutions. A lot of their sort of in-house access control solutions don't yet have the ability to analyze some of those cloud solutions. So it's possibly an area that's not highlighted as much as it should by audit. And we know that a lot of the time, audit is often the driver to make awareness for the organizations or the sort of senior level people to go and understand what the risk is and therefore go and address it. So if the audit firms are not highlighting it, if it's not high up on the audit firm's sort of area of focus at the moment, it's just potentially not. The message is not getting through to the organizations or management that this is an area of concern and it needs to be addressed. Waseem, I know you guys are doing that activity where you can, but it would be good for the audit firms to be able to catch up in this because that will also make our lives, I think, a little bit easier. Often when audit highlighted, it is something then that gets a bit more attention within an organization, and the necessary sort of resources are put to address that.
It is definitely something that we try to also with external audit firms and internally as well. It's still those silos. So you need to let's say mature the skills or mature the knowledge that they require for them to audit or to even tackle I would always still call SAP a monster. You tackle a monster like this, whether it is through the access control or other areas of SAP that needs to be concentrated on. So yes, you have a list for different audits or auditors that they go to an organization, check, I'm done. Give me a list of the controls, permissions, and so on. And that's quite it. They don't know how to utilize different solutions on creating that risk analysis when it comes also to access control. And as you said it, some of these solutions cannot do that to start with. So yes, let's say you have the right people to do it, you have the right processes, and then finally you need the right technology to actually get that risk analysis capabilities going. Because we are past doing stuff manually. There's a lot of very good let's say solutions that can help people rather than make their life even more worse. So from that perspective, also audit firms, as I said, definitely we work with them a lot it's always about upskilling their knowledge in those different areas. So if we can deliver that message and then guide them through different ways of how we do it, then I think we can expand on other areas within that, let's say, organization, even outside the organization. So funny enough is that the third monkey is the audit problems. I hope that everybody understands that these are problems, not people. They are monkeys. So that's why we try to involve all these three monkeys and try to resolve all the problems that exist. So within the different areas.
Yeah, Emile, I guess we've seen that there's, as time goes on, there's a level of maturity that sort of improves. And as things are new, things like, even if you have the ability to integrate, if the access control solution has the ability to integrate with the cloud solution, you often find that in the early years, the rule sets are a little bit weak. They need a few years before people understand what are the various risks that need to be included in the rule sets to monitor that. So those will mature as time goes on. In a few years' time, we'll have much more mature rule sets to cater for a lot of those cloud solutions, but there possibly is a gap at where we are now, where the rule sets and the access control solutions are a bit weak in being able to analyze or assess some of those solutions.
Yeah, you bring up a good point again there. So I'll take it just one step back to our friends, the auditors, both for internal and external. I think people underestimate the value that they can bring. People often fear the internal and external auditors, but they actually play a big part in education for all levels, and not necessarily for the people at ground level that need to do the work, but especially for the senior people, because you need their buy-in, and the audit firm plays a big part in getting, or educating that senior staff members. So we take it to the rule set level, and that's where, unfortunately, the number of different cloud applications it seems like it's just exploded, and there's so many different cloud applications. And the reality is you don't have that one clever person that knows all of these different applications. And to build a quality rule set, you need people with that basically different areas of expertise. So that's applicable both to, to access control, cybersecurity. Every application, every hosted environment almost comes with its own problems, and need experts in that specific area. So that's again, actually, just to complement the guys from No Monkey, educating the auditors again. That's actually almost the wrong way around. Educating them so they can educate their customers, but there's a lot of time and effort that needs to go into that, so that we can get to a point where that filters down to the customer, so they can act a bit more proactive rather than reactive or not at all.
You actually said something very golden, I would say, is that you're right about external auditors do lead the way for organizations to implement certain services, solutions, how their processes would look like. So if you tackle external auditors to improve on their skills, their knowledge, it will directly, you have that supply chain, I would say, to go down to the organizations and improve that maturity that organizations have through the auditors. So that's something I quite liked what you have said there, that they do drive certain decisions. Yes.
Good. Okay. So moving on then to the last sort of subcategory under this sort of prediction of cloud. Waseem, and again, maybe posing the question to you is, do you see that as companies who move on to the SAP RISE program, that there's going to be a bit of time where there may just be a little bit of challenges associated with ownership of certain tasks? Our understanding is that a lot of the basis functionality will be performed by SAP, and then a lot of the security functions will still be performed by the client or the SI. The challenge possibly is that there's a little bit of overlap on some of those activities, such as, an activity like activating the security audit logs. It's required by the security team, but it's very much a basis activity to activate those logs. Also table logging, etc. The security guys will need a lot of that information, but the actual action of activating those logs and ensuring that they are set up correctly is a basis activity. So just feel that as this SAP RISE program is relatively new, it'll just take a few years for SAP and their customers to sort of iron out who does what, who's responsible for what. Any comment on that area?
Yes, definitely. A lot of comments. I just want to take it a step back to just identify problems that we actually see within organizations coming from two areas. One area is SAP, where SAP, they have a lot of, when it comes to RISE, there's clear to some, if you dig deeper, there's an understanding of their responsibilities and roles. But the problem is actually around how it is being sold. So there's the lack of, we don't even know as SAP what SAP offers in terms of roles and responsibility. So there's one side of that. The other side is the organization. So whether, that move, that transformation that happens during discovery assessment that happens by SAP or any other SI, they do not involve a part of security. The entire discovery assessment happens around the processes, what is high risk, what can be moved, what cannot be moved, and what can be improved, but not around security. Even though if you look at one of their methodologies is that there is security to be tackled, but at the same time, it's just saying follow some guidelines or documents, and their guidelines and documents are quite huge. So these are the two problems first that require to be addressed. But when it comes to the responsibility, yes, the customer here, we see that they understand it depends on the deployment model. So whether you are deploying in a private cloud or you have your public cloud becomes very obvious what you need to do. So we take it back to basics of cloud security. Understand that anything that you need to deal with is on an application level. And even if the data is actually on the cloud service provider or wherever your data is, you would eventually solely be responsible for it. Now, yes, there are, let's say, measures in place that the cloud service provider or SAP is responsible for, but this is the organization's data. That's one thing that we usually speak about, is that you need to understand as an organization where your data is, how is it being processed within the cloud service providers' data centers. They might particularly not even tell you exactly where it sits, and that's even a bigger problem. But when it comes to roles and responsibilities, we see that, yes, there's a very fine line, but organizations need to do that, I think, activity of understanding exactly with SAP or with other other vendors, how they can improve their contracts when they are moving, improve their SLAs that exactly define, okay, on the application layer, this is for us. On a presentation layer, this is our responsibilities. You go down the line, you have from host until the infrastructure. This is completely for SAP. Now, there was I had one customer that was very interesting for me, is that, which I got to even know, is that any customer that is even thinking of going through or doing the transformation with RISE or any option or any area of RISE, whether public or private, they need to understand that the connectivity to any service provider is their responsibility. So yes, then there's like, okay, so it's not just application layer, it's also the connectivity that I need to do. So it does get confusing, but there is a clear line on what to do exactly, but they need to know what this, what every, let's say, responsibility is, whether it is user identity management, authorization management, the functional changes and basis changes. It needs to happen on an organizational level. Security, you said it, security audit logging, it's a basis functionality, and it will remain a basis functionality, and the organization needs to take care of that. SAP will not turn it on for you. Maybe it is recommended as a security baseline, but you need to take care of that monitoring area of it. Same thing as a big topic is third-party and custom applications. You still need to do your due diligence of seeing whether the code is clean, whether there is, so you do that code analysis. Your, let's say, ethical hacking or penetration testing simulations, still you need to do this based on whether it is audit or you need to comply with something. You still need to do that as a customer or as an organization.
I'm assuming, Waseem, this is an area that you guys are providing a lot of advisory to customers. So for anyone out there who does need some help, they can reach out to you guys who've got a lot of experience now in that space.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have, we try to not overload customers with all of this. So we try to move with them with a retainer model for a couple of days every month. To help them integrate or to help them understand whether it is their risks, whether it is their responsibilities. Because to be honest, at the end of the day, we don't try to fool anybody. Everybody needs to go through S/4HANA. Now, I'm not trying to sell SAP, no, but SAP is trying to create that end of support for ECC, and it will happen that everybody needs to go to the cloud. So sooner or later, you need to do it. Whether it is from us helping them, taking their hand, but or doing it for other areas, it needs to happen. So we do have that, as I said, retainer that we help them understand the risk. Also, and we involve a lot of the stakeholders within the business to understand where their responsibilities fall under. Now, at the end is where we start. We are an advisor, we are independent, so we do not particularly recommend one certain solution. We say there's a lot of players. There's Soterion, and when it comes to access, and this is what they do. There is some other vendors, this is what they do. But this is at the end, once you have the people area covered, process developed, properly defined, and then this is the technology that can actually assist you.
Well summarized. Good. Okay, so I think we'll end it there. So, Waseem, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
Really good to spend time with you with that. Emile, thank you from your side. And to everyone, thank you for joining today's podcast. Until the next one. Waseem, thanks so much.
Thank you.